Good day, listeners. Welcome to this edition of the Pure Sex Radio program. We're so glad to have you here with us. My name is Jonathan, and I'm sitting next to my buddy, Steven Cervantes. So how are you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here, alive and excited.
Yeah, well, when we're recording this is about the middle of October, and it's finally starting to feel like fall around here. And I have one of my friends that she and her husband, we all went to college together, and so we've known them for a long, long time, and they're just hilarious. And one of her sons came up to her and said, "Mom, fall in Texas has commitment issues." Because, you know, you'll have a day that starts to get cool, and then, you know, it's like 95 degrees the next couple days. So I love that. But it's finally starting to feel like maybe we're getting there. Maybe it's starting to get cool. So
that is good.
All right, Steven, we need to talk about men.
Yeah.
Let's talk about men.
Chest bump, oomph. Yeah, guy, you know.
So what are we going to talk about men?
We got to talk. You that was a handoff. I missed it. So a lot of times, you know, in our conversations, we ask guys permission to share a few thoughts. This guy was kind of rambling and sharing thoughts and talking about where he'd been. He'd been doing sexual integrity work for a year. And he started making some comments. I said, wait a minute, let me write those down. These Gateway guys are phenomenal. They are so ready to say, share it. We never share names. But share my story, share my struggle, share my progress and my growth. Share it, yeah. It's going to bless a brother who's in the pit. When I'm coming out of the pit, we'll pass it back to the guy in the pit. You know, you don't have to live in the pit. So he says, I've been clean 1 year, which is freaking exciting.
That's huge.
You know
That's
what
awesome.
I mean?
Yeah.
Just think that 1 year of fighting the battle, getting up, doing good, then you fall down, fall on your face, throw a fit, rebel. You get back up, you clean yourself up again, you get back in the fight, you do your group and accountability. It's like crazy. The first year is like crazy insanity. Why am I doing? Do I want to do it? I've been doing this other thing for 20 years. Can I go back? I mean, it's just crazy. The first year is crazy. If you make it through the first year, you know what they say in AA? Don't even open your mouth for the first 90 days. 3 months, don't open your mouth. You got nothing to say. You're crazy. You know, whatever you're saying is, I got the solution. I can fix it. I can do. It's like, okay, shut up and dig deeper. Shut up and dig deeper. So after a year of doing work, the lights come on, the brain settles down, the aha moments, and now you're working not just behaviorally, you're really digging in deep.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys to that is we've been going through Gerald May's book, Addiction and Grace, in our group, in our support group. And I love that book. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's but one of the things he talks about in there is just how even biologically our bodies crave balance. So anytime there is something introduced, you know, whether it be an illness or whether it be a hyperactivity of chemicals or whatever, there's going to be a counter activity that's going to go on in the body to try to compensate for that or to try to address that. Yeah. And so I think what happens is you've basically got this person that through pornography or whatever, they've been imbalancing even
with
their biology
and all that. Right?
And so I think what happens over that first year is all that chaos and all the recovery work and all those difficult things is starting to bring back into balance, like even
that's
biology.
Good. That's right.
And so I think that's why that year marker is such a huge piece, because it can take that long for some of those balance issues to come back.
Right. And if you have a 20-year struggle, really, are you done in a month?
Right.
Are you done in 3 months? Really, it took 20 years. You're done in 6 months. No, I think you better think year. Just get on a program and work for a year. Because then on the other side of doing this work, the lights come on, the mind cooperates, the inside, the hearing is better. I mean, everything. So, you know what the first thing he said was so significant? He said, I stopped blaming myself, tearing me up, criticizing me, trashing me. I just stopped tearing me up.
Yeah, it makes me think of like, that's typically shame driving that.
Yes.
Right. And I can already hear people out there, even maybe some wives out there that are going, but what he did is his fault. So there can be a sense of like, but isn't blame, if it's accurate, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, but I think what I hear in this, and maybe if I could try to extrapolate a little bit of what he's saying as somebody who comes from that world myself, is I think that what this guy is trying to say about, I'm no longer blaming me, you could maybe even state it, I'm no longer shaming me.
Yes, and trashing me and demeaning me.
Yeah.
And hating on me.
This is not saying, I'm not saying that I did any of the things that I did. Right. He's not saying that. Right. He's not abdicating responsibility for the decisions that he took. But there's a difference between taking responsibility and trashing yourself for what you did.
That's right. And so how do you give up a little terrible pleasure if you have to go back to just trashing yourself? I mean, trashing yourself and escaping go together, right?
Yeah.
And when you stop trashing yourself, then you loosen the need to go and escape from yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's why he was saying that. The engine, the fuel, the me being critical of me, I live with me, I torment me, blame me, shame me. Hey, that engine is not driving the core anymore.
And the interesting thing about it is not that there isn't an element of recovery that you've got to take an honest look at yourself, right? But that kind of trashing and shaming and blaming is keeping an unhealthy focus on yourself, right?
Yes, it is. Keeping an unhealthy focus. It's too much you consumed with you. But I would add, most of these guys hate to be alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because why? You sit there with all that. You're going to beat yourself. You're going to remember what you did wrong and how bad and stupid these voices and memories, right? That's why I call it the engine of the soul is torment and blame and shame. You got to run from that, right? Or quiet it. So he said, spiritually, I'm free from sin and the death that goes with sin. So, I mean, I'm doing some emotional work, this guy says. I'm doing some spiritual work. I confess to God, my brothers, my wife, my church, to other men. I just confessed. And I found freedom from the trap. Sin and death. Sin and death. Sin and death.
Yeah. And that's just it. It's like, as you're saying that, especially the confession piece, I think there's this kind of grand aha moment that happens for the person that honestly enters recovery. And that is, darkness, secrecy, lies, that was killing me.
Yeah.
There's freedom in the light.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
I'm always quick to say, freedom in the light does not equal comfortable. In other words, I think sometimes people say, so when I come into the light, like things get easy and it's comfortable, and it's like, no. Freedom does not always mean you're comfortable, but freedom means you're no longer in hiding. You're no longer bound up by that shame or the lies or the deception of it.
Yes, and freedom means you're past something that was killing you, right?
Yeah.
Freedom to live, freedom to engage versus stuck, not free, enmeshed, in what's another N word here? Enmeshed and engaged and, all woven together. I'm free of that. 20-year. Remember, that first, acting out second. Torment yourself first, go act out second. If you stop the first one, you got a better chance to battle the second one.
Right.
But if you don't stop the first one, you just can hold on and wait. And then you wonder, why did that guy fall out? He did good for 2 months. Well, the torment was still going on, right? And he sat on it, he quieted, he pretended it wasn't there, and then boom. You see this with a lot of people that have tormented. You see church leaders, they talk good, they love Jesus, read their Bible, and boom, the bottom drops out. Why? The torment was still down there, right? So he goes on, he says, I am looking at me differently. am not going to torment me, how am I going to treat me? What am I going to think about me? If I don't hate on me all the time, well, what should I be thinking? What's healthy thinking?
You know, as you're saying that, the reason I'm kind of smiling over here is because I'm thinking I can hear from heaven this like sound from God of like, yes, you're getting it. You're like realizing you're now going to start seeing yourself from my perspective. Because I don't shame you. I don't trash you.
I love that.
I died for you.
That's right.
I gave my life for you. And so I think there's this release that can happen because it's like, well, how am I supposed to look at myself now? And it's almost like I can hear God saying, hey, I got an idea.
I love that.
Let me tell you how you can see yourself. Yeah. Let me show you how I see you.
Yeah, I made you. I know you. I know you better than you know you. Hey, how about looking at you like I see you?
Yeah.
I love that. That's fabulous. And he also took it a step further. He says, I am now seeing other men with new eyes because I see men walking around being tormented. Listen to their language. Watch their behaviors. See how well they can engage difficult issues and stay present. He said, I'm looking at men and asking, are you in the torment? Are you free? Mm-hmm. Are you in the torment? Are you free? You got peace and joy and rest? Freedom.
Well, what I love about this is how the freedom that he is experiencing is literally changing how he sees everything.
Yes.
I mean, think about it for a second. When we're in the torment, when we're in the addiction, when we're in the blindness of that, you're not really seeing anybody else but yourself, right? I mean, like, and usually the only thing you're seeing about others is how can I essentially use them to get whatever I want, or how can I manipulate, or
sort of fit in, or be close enough to you to look like, right? You're always on. But
I'm not
outside.
Present with them.
No.
I'm not looking to them in a way that says, "Hey, could I help them, or could I learn something from them?"
He said, I have a new perspective, and the word is possibility. If I'm not stuck, what is possible? If I'm not bound, if I'm not going to torment me today, what am I made for? What's the possibility? Why are you here? What could we do together? What could happen that I could never see before?
Well, when you think about that back through the God perspective, Ephesians 3:20 tells us that God is the one that can do beyond what we can think or even imagine.
Oh, that's good.
So when we think about possibilities from that perspective, it's like, oh my goodness, the old phrase, the world is your oyster. Like, the possibilities for good and light and hope and joy, it's like they're endless.
He said, I am free of a 20-year addiction.
Wow.
I am free of what glommed onto me, held onto me.
20 years.
20 years. Think about how many days, how many mornings he got up, how many nights he went to bed, how many days he carried this torment. 20 years. What happens to a man when he's lost in a 20-year torment? Run. Torment, hide. Torment, pretend. Torment, get away, escape. What happens?
I think there's the first thing that came to my mind was I think what happens is there's a withered and weary soul.
Yeah.
And probably in some ways a withered and weary body too. I mean, because those things go together. Yeah. I sense there's just a fatigue at a very deep level, because when you're in that kind of bondage and you're trapped for that long, it's kind of like your life energy just kind of gets sapped from you.
And I'm thinking, if you've done 20 years of not being present and working on skills, if you've done 20 years of running away, you're sort of stunted.
Yeah.
And most of these guys, when you peel back the addiction, you see a scared boy that's not well equipped to deal with life and the heartache. He hasn't been practiced discipline, maturity, insight, growth, development for
That's
20
true, yeah.
years. He has been stunted. You know, that's sort of sad.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, I have never loved well. I haven't known love. I haven't loved me. I haven't loved my wife. I haven't loved others. I have not known love.
Well, you know, when I think about that, you know, we talked in a previous broadcast about how we are fundamentally designed to be known and loved, and love is our design. We were made for love. We were made to love, and it kind of makes me think there is a very real enemy that wants to prevent that purpose from being fulfilled in each of our lives. So think about what better vehicle for sort of killing that in a human being than addiction.
Wow.
I mean, addiction is a love killer. So if you think about it, I think that's a real weapon in the enemy's hands of get people addicted to anything.
That's right.
And you're going to kill love in them.
One day at a time, I practice this skill. Don't blame me. Don't shame me. Don't torment me. Embrace freedom. Repeat, free, free. I am free. I've been set free. Don't do these and instead do this.
Yeah, you know, the picture that comes to my mind, because this is something that I had to really learn early on in my recovery, and it's something I still have to come back to over and over again, is that the freedom that we have been given from our addiction through our relationship with Christ is not a freedom that detaches us. It's actually a freedom that attaches us to the person of Jesus. In other words, it's like, you know, we're told in the scriptures that, you know, when I was apart from Christ, I was a slave to my sin, right?
Yeah.
But now what does he say about the freedom that I have being with Christ? I'm a slave of Christ. So it's actually, I'm more free the more attached I am to Jesus. I think sometimes we think of freedom as like, I'm totally detached. I'm totally, you know, on my own. And it's like, no, that's a nightmare. That's, I think, part of what addiction is like you're trying to be totally, quote unquote, free to yourself and free on your own. And it's like it leads to bondage. So I think freedom is more about the, you know, when he says here, no more shame, no more blaming, I'm going to talk about freedom. Well, where does that come? It's like we're told that there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
That's right.
So it's like, I want to be more and more in him.
Yes.
And I'll be more and more. In other words, the way I think of it is I'm more free the more I'm like yoked to Jesus.
Right, and working his program and living his design
Yeah.
and understanding what I was made for and made to be, right? My freedom comes in that purpose, not in the little sneaking and filling and taking that I do. He said, slowly, ever so slowly, peace keeps seeping into me. Peace is seeping into areas where it's never been. Peace is seeping into my heart, my mind, and my soul. Peace is showing up.
And I think this is important for anybody out there listening, especially for the men that we're trying to talk to here.
Yes.
That are maybe currently even in some kind of recovery program, but you're feeling like peace is elusive. Because I think I've being in my own recovery journey for 21 years, and I've been in many recovery environments and everything, and so often what I've seen is that guys come into recovery and they just trade the treadmill of addiction for the treadmill of recovery.
Yes.
They're quote unquote working a program, but not really fully working it to where there's now rest in their soul. They're just as restless as they were before. And what I hear this guy saying is, you know what, as I've really been engaging freedom and understanding what it is to truly be free from my addiction, I've got rest. Like I'm not churning.
No,
I'm not
that's
thinking
right.
that my worth is now based on how well I do in recovery. It's like
Yeah.
I've got a sense of value and worth that comes from my Creator.
That's funny. I don't become a recovery addict, right?
Yeah.
That's not the new solution.
Right.
It's to move it over here. He said, this is a funny thing for me to say, but I can't get angry anymore. I used to get angry so easily and so fast. And
I needed to work his program because
he said, I just can't get angry when I see men in torment, and remind myself. And anger was my tool to push everybody away. It's like, I can't get, it's funny, I can't get angry anymore. Is that good?
I'm not there yet. So, yeah. One of the things I think I would take away from this, though, is I think it is important to distinguish maybe the difference between anger and passion. You know, because I think some guys have only thought that the only way they can express an emotion is in an angry way.
No.
So I like the fact that there has been a calming in this guy's spirit to where now, since he's got new eyes and he's seeing things through this grid of like freedom and grace and love, that now I feel like what this means is I can see with a new kind of empathy towards others.
That's good.
Anger is often still about like my kingdom, and I want my kingdom to reign, and I want my kingdom to be ruled in the way I want it, and you're violating that, and so now I'm going to be angry. I think when you get sort of God's kingdom perspective, the things that are going to move you are going to be different. You know, you're not going to get so upset about petty things.
But before everybody gets excited, there are two challenges.
Okay.
He said, my wife still feels hurt after all this time.
Yeah.
And something happens and she lashes out at me. And it's hard to take that lashing.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. You know, even when you're going through this process of finding freedom from your addiction and you're not acting out in those ways before and you're not shaming, there's damage that has been done because of your actions. And you can't ignore or pretend that those things didn't happen and that there's not real pain there. And so there's certainly going to be amends that need to be made, and there's going to be anger toward you that you're going to have to address and learn how to
and work through,
to endure.
Right. So if I'm honest, I have to admit my emotional skills are limited. And there's one thing that scares me, and it's 4 words. We need to talk. We need to talk. We need to talk.
Oh,
we better set aside some time tonight.
Now this is still
after dinner.
under one of the 2 challenges. We're under marriage, right?
That's
We're still
right.
talking. This
There
is
you
still under
go.
the challenge of marriage.
And he said, when I hear those words, I surge with fear. I'm afraid of emotional encounters because what I've learned is I have a small emotional toolbox. You know, like the little kid, junior-sized toolbox. My wife shows up. She rolls in this 4-drawer, large, heavy-duty toolbox, and I show up my little plastic tool set, and we're gonna work on something.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, that's just it. Roll up your sleeves, you know. Dig around in her toolbox, you know. If she's got the tools, use them.
So, but this takes a twist because I just said that off what he said. He said, my wife was wounded growing up, and she's emotionally stunted too. She has limitations, and talking is hard for her, and talking is hard for me. And I broke trust on top of that.
Yeah, that's a lot of challenges there. But with all that said, I think whatever steps are taken towards pursuing those conversations and pursuing working on that trust are positive moves. That's good steps to take.
That's right.
You don't have to, in the same way that it's like, okay, we're talking about, hey, if you had a 20-year problem and you think a month is going to fix it. Same thing with communication and rebuilding trust and healing those wounds. It's going to take time.
So I'm talking about challenge 1, where I have to go out beyond myself. I told you about myself, but I have to go out beyond myself. I find this relationship is exhausting. because between her hurt and my ignorance, not knowing, there's little nurturing and affirming that goes on in this marriage.
Mm-hmm. But this is one of those cases, and I don't mean to sound harsh here at all, but I say this in all love and kindness, is we have to be careful of forming similar kinds of excuses that we did in our addiction. In other words, think of all the rationalizations that are used over 20 years of building a sex addiction.
Okay.
It's rational. I mean, in the mind of the addict, it's a rationalizing. Oh, this makes sense. I have to do this because X, Y, or Z over here isn't working for me, or my wife is this way, or I'm not getting what I want here, and so therefore I'm going to go over here.
Yeah.
Those are excuses, right? I'm basically making excuses for acting out that way. So when I turn and I start to try to engage in a healthy manner and build a healthy relationship,
right.
I have to be careful of saying, well, X, Y, Z here, so see, I mean, it's a little affirming. It's not much going on.
And men are good about going, yeah, you know your wife.
Right, yeah.
You know your wife. That's the problem. We're not that great at challenging one another, going, hey, well, what are you going to do? Why don't you practice patience? Or get in the fight. Knock it off. Stop. You're lying to me and you. And right, they go, yeah, your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know your wife.
Because, again, if we pan out to the 30,000-foot view here, what are we looking at? We're looking at a man who had a 20-year addiction. So we already know tons of emotional stuntedness there.
Yes.
He's 1 year in to his recovery.
It's true, yes.
So, yeah, is it difficult? Sure. Don't make an excuse. Keep pressing in.
Stay in the fight, brother. Stay in the fight.
Stay pushing into that.
Because what do you want? Love? I mean, what does she want? Love? What do you want? Love? What does she want? Freedom? What do you want? Freedom?
Right.
Peace, joy, rest. Stay in the fight.
Yeah.
So he said the second part of this is hard to admit, but I need to tell the other men that are listening. So many men tell me simple behavioral solutions. Well, just do this or just do that. Or I start to tell a problem, they tell me a solution. I mean, and it's like that has stunted me and stunted them. I wish men didn't always come up with a quick, cheap, fast little solution that's going to save the world, and it doesn't.
Right.
And I find that frustrating. I need wisdom, maturity. I need spiritual truths, emotional truths. I need to know how to heal my pain with my spirit and my emotional self so that my Father's there and I'm healing me and healing my wife too.
This is one thing that comes up often in support group settings, whether it's a support group I'm leading or when I'm trying to help support group leaders or whatever, is I often tell them, you need to remember the limitations of a support group and what a support group is for. And I'll say, it's for support. So the idea is,
I love that. I've never heard. That's brilliant.
So in other words,
people
it's not counseling.
Yeah, they want
it's
it
not
to
an
be
intensive.
everything.
It's like, what do we need? Can we get together in a group with men and say, hey, can we walk alongside each other on this journey and just support each other?
Yes.
It's like, I'm not going to give you all the answers. You're not going to give me all the answers.
That's right.
We're going to talk about our issues. Yeah, there's some truth here, and we want to dive into that, but can we just support each other? And I think that's what we need. It's like, I'm not living your life, but I would like to come alongside you and support you as you discover these things and work them out.
And so sometimes in group, people think they have to have all the answers, right? And when you listen to them, a new guy comes in, the old guy tells them the answer. Another new guy comes in, the old guy says the same answer. He's telling everybody the same thing. Where's the growth here, Mm-hmm. And you can see some groups are sort of repetitive and behavioral, but they're not deep. And it's like people want greater depth and more patience, more listening, more exploring. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're doing for ourselves. That's what our spouses want. That's what our groups need. That's what other men need.
Yeah.
So I hope this has been a bit helpful.
Yeah, so this is basically, we've been able to share with you guys kind of one guy's thoughts
Yes.
on his journey that he hopes will help some other men out
Amen.
there. And we hope that that's what's happened here, that you men out there, you've taken some of this, and hopefully you will run with it and continue to pursue growth and healing in your own journey. And of course, we're here to help. Please reach out to us if you have questions or just want some more help along your journey. But thanks for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you back here again next time on the Pure Sex Radio program.
And you're a good man.
Amen.
Adios.
Take care.